Yep.
Good evening, everybody. The business meeting of the Board of Education of the Cleveland Municipal School District will come to order. Mr. Mortimer, will you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Bingham.
Here.
Mr. Hurd.
Here.
Ms. Dempsey. Yes. Ms. Ellicott.
Here.
Ms. Hudnall.
Here.
Mrs. Link. Here. Dr. Streethart.
Here.
Dr. Thomas. Dr. Thomas.
She's absent.
Ms. Valdez.
Here.
Ms. Bingham, we have an 8-1. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mortimer. I would ask everyone who's able to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to have to do something. There's no energy in this room. The chair will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the board work session of September 13th, 2022.
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes of that meeting is approved. It is so nice to be here at Sunbeam again. We haven't been here in quite a while, and so I'd now like to introduce Principal of Sunbeam School, Jessica Humphrey, to tell us about her school and her amazing students.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to CEO Gordon and the board, and welcome to Sunbeam School. I'm Jessica Humphrey, proud to be the principal of Sunbeam and happy to have you join us for this evening's meeting. As you entered the building tonight, you passed by a small sign on the wall outside of our office recognizing Sunbeam's beginnings. In 1889, the Sunbeam Circle, who were a small group of women volunteers, conducted the first kindergarten class for children with disabilities in Cleveland. This progressive and forward-thinking group of women began their work sewing items for sale to benefit the children who were at Lakeside Hospital. Their classes were taken over by the Board of Education in 1910. I call attention always to their efforts as a reminder of Sunbeam's over 100-year history in Cleveland and our continued commitment to providing outstanding education to all students and always to our students with special needs. The student culture at Sunbeam is one of our greatest points of pride. Students are accepted as they are, and the spirit and practice of inclusion is a part of our daily work. Today, Sunbeam continues their work in this beautiful state-of-the-art facility. We are proud members of the Redesign Network in CMSD, and our highlights this year are piloting one of the district's integrated kindergarten classrooms, and we're doing that work to provide a more supportive transition for our students who are coming out of our preschool special education classrooms. We continue to serve the population of students with medical fragility and visual impairments and blindness. And the highlights of our building, of course, are our aquatics and kinesthetic learning studio. So today, our students and our teachers work to experience inquiry-based learning, engaging students in exploring their curiosities and answering their own questions through guided research and experimentation. That young gentleman on the left holding the butterfly that was recently hatched had the great question of whether or not that butterfly would enjoy his half-eaten lollipop as a potential food source. So it was great to see them come to fruition and to go through release day. A recent science project in one of our third grade classrooms presented students with a problem to solve. How could they keep classroom plants watered if they went on vacation, such as winter break? And I'm going to let one of our third grade groups of girls share their experimental design with you now.
Solution to make sure that our plants stay alive for the 18 days that we was gone. So we didn't have a lot of resources, so we had to use our resources, money, and time, so we can make our stuff, and hopefully it can stay for our 18 days.
All right, tell me what you guys decided to design. How about you two ladies? What did you design to keep your plant alive?
We had like a little rope and it was long, so we had to cut it shorter for the water to come up, so it can come in, get in the dirt, so it can get in the flower, so it can grow faster.
Oh, so talk to me about what did you build right here? I'm going to zoom in so we can see it really
This,
close.
we had all of our stuff, and at first we didn't work, but we didn't give up. We kept on going, and so we cut it shorter and a little more shorter. We added more water, and we felt it for a little bit because after we couldn't touch it at all when our 18 days started. So we did. We put the rope in there, the strip for the tube, and we made holes inside of this. So it's little itty bitty holes in there, and they're small, like very small. So when that go up inside, and we made one big hole so it can go up inside and then go all the way up.
All right, how will you know if your design was successful?
Well, we filled inside and it was moist, so that's how we knew it was coming inside. But that it was ours was moist at the bottom, but that's still good. But we probably could have cut the rope shorter so it can go all at the top. But it was moist at the top, at the bottom, and then it was a little dry at the top, but it was still moist and it's still alive.
Awesome. Nice work, ladies. Thank you so much. But the highlight of that video for me is where she said, we were not successful, it did not work, so we tried again. The plant is still alive. Ms. Hull's class is monitoring their experimental designs, and the ingenuity and collaboration students are engaged with are great examples of the profile of graduate work that we are doing here with our Jaguars. So thank you very much for being here at Sunbeam tonight. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Hurd, do you want to mention your fraternity's annual activity here?
So you may have noticed that I was sitting up here fiddling with my phone because I was pulling up some photographs from last December. Every year for, God, it's been over 20 years. My fraternity comes here and gives every kid in the building a Christmas gift. And I was just pulling up the photographs from last year. Yep, we enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Next, we will have our report from Chief Executive Officer Eric Gordon.
Thank you. Good evening, board members and members of the public. First of all, to Ms. Humphreys and the Sunbeam team, great work with your inquiry model. I also noticed the growth mindset of trying again, and also the fact that they were demonstrating their learning by using their communication skills, which were really effective for third grade students. So this is exactly what we want to see, is our students engaged in both academic content and transferable skills. My compliments. Congratulations to the Sunbeam team. I will be brief this evening because it is our business meeting. I did want to point out, though, a few kind of important things that have happened and some upcoming things as well. First of all, our report card was released on September 15th, and it told us two things that we already knew. One is that the pandemic had impact on our students' learning opportunities. We saw that in our early literacy and our graduation rates in particular, but also that we will recover, and that was evident in our performance index, which has already recovered to pre-pandemic levels, our progress measure, where we were 4-star rated, and our gap closing, where we were also 4-star rated. When we looked at our comparison against other urban districts in Ohio, we were ranked as the top-rated urban school district in the state of Ohio, outpacing the other 7 large urbans, including Toledo, Dayton, Cincinnati, Columbus, Canton, Akron, and Youngstown. So we can be justifiably proud of that. We also outpaced 3 of our urban-suburban peers right here in Northeast Ohio, including Garfield Heights, East Cleveland, and Euclid. And when we looked at growth, which is one of the things we really excelled in, we ranked 12th in the state of Ohio on the growth gain score, and that's out of the 600-some districts that are in the state of Ohio, we ranked 12th. So we can really be proud of the rebound that we're making. We have more to do, we know that. We're not declaring victory, but we certainly have been able to demonstrate that we can and will recover from the pandemic. So really proud of all of our educators and also of our scholars and families for the work that was accomplished last year and what was an incredibly difficult school year. Second, also wanted to just recognize that I had my 12th State of the Schools address last Wednesday. Was able to share not only our progress over the last several years, but looking forward, and also to take an opportunity to share the rationale behind my decision to step down at the conclusion of this school year and the important transition point that the community is in. And all I would say about it in a nutshell is that anyone who's been in Cleveland for any length of time knows that we often get this wrong. We often hand off organizations when they're struggling or when they're in crisis, when in fact you want to hand off an organization when it is at a relative position of strength so that the work that has been done can continue on. And that really was the message of the district. And I appreciated not only all the board members who were able to be there or watching on the stream, but also all of the members of our community that came out in person or watched on the stream as well. So that occurred last week as well. Last Thursday, we had a hiring fair, and it was one of our most successful hiring fairs to date, so I'm really excited by that. We were able to interview 49 people and offered 42 offers of employment out of 49 people, and this includes offering 6 part-time security officers, 4 full-time security officers, a mobile patrol officer, a number of substitute positions, 11 more environmental service specialists, 2 bus drivers, 3 driver trainees, and 3 bus attendants, a preschool monitor, and several others. And so really successful work, and congratulations to Laura Mulvaney, our strategic staffing, and her team for the work that they did. And now these people are all in the pre-hire stage, and we'll go through background checks and screenings, and we hope all of them will clear that and be in our schools and classrooms. And so very proud of that.
So where was that held and what time of day, just out of curiosity?
It was held.
Did that have anything to do with the relative success of the?
It was, the question was, where was it held and what time of day? It was held at East Professional Center from 9 to approximately 4 o'clock, which has been our kind of standard practice. I do think the job economy is starting to shift, so people are starting to pick work back up, which is helpful. It's also become something you can depend on, that once a month, toward the end of the month on a Thursday, you can count on we're going to have our next hiring fair. I think also the word's getting around that unlike many hiring events, we do offer on the spot. And so not telling people, thanks for putting your application in and wait to hear, but yes, come right over here. We want to make you an offer, and I think that makes a difference. And I think the team is really tested ideas and then come back and huddled and said, okay, what worked, what didn't, that is going to get us more. We really worked hard, our operations people, because this was largely operations. Every division sent staff members from that team, so it wasn't you sitting with an HR person who doesn't actually do the work. It was sitting with the security team, sitting with the facilities managers, sitting with the food service team as examples, transportation. I think that mattered as well. Yep.
Thank you.
So yeah, so we're excited to have hopefully 42 more people joining us. Today actually was Cleveland Goes to College Fair, again at East Professional Center. So all of our seniors came out to East Professional Center today to visit with literally dozens of colleges from across the state and country. And right now, as we speak, from 5 to 7 p.m. this evening was a public fair for our students to bring their families back, but we also opened it up to all of the school districts in Cuyahoga County so that their families could also come in and access colleges right at East Professional Center. So I'll be excited to hear how that concluded this evening, but that is going on at East as we speak. And that is just ahead of College Application Month, which starts on Saturday, October 1st is College Application Month. So this is teeing up, having our students ready to pick those colleges and start filling out those applications. We are also engaged in our second round of Segment 8 construction meetings, and so we had the Gallagher renovation meeting on September 21st. On tomorrow, September 28th at 6 p.m., we will be having the Clark construction meeting at Clark School. And then on October 19th at 6 p.m., we'll be having the Marion Seltzer construction meeting at Cudell Rec Center, which is right next door to Marion Seltzer School. So our second round of community updates and feedback for our Segment 8 construction. And then remember, we also have Lincoln West that will follow once the Gallagher swing site is done, freeing up the Garrett Morgan site for Lincoln West. Fall athletics competitions are also beginning. It's championship time for fall athletics, and so I would encourage the board and community to go to the Senate League calendar where there are all of the athletic event competitions, and hopefully you'll be able to join us at the Senate League events, and then as we move into tournament events for OHSAA. On October 6th, we'll be having the first Student Advisory Committee meeting of the year. I'm really excited to be partnering with the City of Cleveland and Mayor Bibb's Chief of Youth and Family Success, Sonia Pryor-Jones, where we're going to take work the students did last spring around violence, youth violence, and violence against women. The mayor and Sonia Pryor-Jones are going to share what they have made out of that work and their framework, and then our students are going to be able to give a second round of feedback and then actually also gather some feedback to give directly to the mayor at a meeting scheduled shortly after that. So really excited for first Student Advisory Committee meeting of the year. Parent conferences are coming up. Pre-K-8 are October 12th, and high school are October 13th. They are 12:30 to 7:30 p.m. on each of those days, and so obviously students do not have school on the day of their parent conferences, but really I can't believe we're already there. The year's going so quickly, but that's happening as well. Then finally, you do have your media pack in front of you. On the left-hand side, you'll see a number of stories, including stories about the Mary Church Terrell School naming celebration, Father's Walk, the capital improvements community meetings I just mentioned, the Glenville High School relaxation room for educators, our At 10 dance, part of September attendance awareness, and story on the state of the schools. You'll also see updates on our social media postings. On the right-hand side of your package, I want to point out that we now have flyers saying coming in October. Something else that families will be getting is our Get More Support, which is after-hours tutoring. This will include live tutoring by CMSD teachers Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 7:30 p.m. in reading, math, science, and social studies, K through 12. And it is an electronic appointment system, so our parents or students will click on a booking site and they will book using their student's CMSD email. That's how we know that it's a valid request. That then connects the student and the tutor through Teams to do live tutoring. And then we will be supplementing that live tutoring with another layer of tutoring, which will also be free and available to our kids and families 24 hours a day, 7 days a week through virtual tutoring as well. So we're really excited to be expanding that capacity for our young people. You'll also see a lot of information about our district wellness efforts, our Ombuds office, our FACEN Parent Ambassador program, and a flyer for hiring this year's parent ambassadors if our schools don't already have one. Sunbeam does. They actually have a really nice picture of their parent ambassador hanging in the main hallway as you entered here. You'll see it's our annual True to You kickoff, so our 8th grade mentoring program. You'll see that flyers we had for Gallagher's renovation, and we have those also for the other schools. You'll see our State of the Schools speech, which we print so that people can have available. And then you'll also see this year's report card infographic, which is showing again that #1 top performing urban district in the state of Ohio and 12th ranked in state in growth. 4 stars in progress and 4 stars in gap closing, along with 8 other measures of progress that are more local, like our expansion of art, music, and phys ed. Over 1,300 scholarships of over $5 million awarded so far. Our volunteer mentors, the employers that are part of PACE, our high school esports expansion, and our health professionals and support service specialists in all of our school buildings. So quite a bit of literature when the board has an opportunity to look through those items. And with that, I will close my report for this evening and answer any questions of the board.
Mr. Gordon, do you intend to again participate in the Attend dance? on video?
So there
Because
are
that was a
there-
highlight of your career here in Cleveland.
There are two really terrible at-10 dances out there that got recycled ad nauseum, so they didn't make me do a third bad dance. They just pulled the first and the second bad dance out there. But I will, just for your amusement, I will do the Q-tip, the Q-tip, the Q-tip, the Q-tip, making the pizza, Yeah, so
I'm so
I'm
glad
going to
I
leave it
asked.
to the students.
Any other questions from board members? Mrs. Link?
Thank you, Chair. So thank you for your report, Mr. Gordon, and I had a little time to go onto the state website to look like at individual schools, but when you were talking about progress, I was just kind of curious about the definition, so I was just pulling it up while you were talking. So great news. I mean, I can see that English language arts were fantastic, mathematics, very good, and so it looks like some of our gap might be in science. And I'm wondering why 4th, 6th, and 7th, why does it say like no value added data?
So science is only tested in 5th and 8th grade.
Okay.
So the categories show up on the site, but there's nothing to put in them.
Okay.
And science is a challenge for us, but we are implementing a brand new science curriculum K-8 this year that we think is going to help us to close some of those gaps as well.
Okay, very good. And why do they only test 2 years of science?
That's-
That's just the state, the
that's
way they
how
do
it
it?
works.
Okay, yeah, so, I mean, and when I was looking at the individual schools, while I don't, it's hard to have a whole nother rating system again, for a year-to-year comparison, but I did find the charts actually pretty easy to read compared to some of the things in the past. So I hope at least it's helpful to the schools and the families. So thank you.
Ms. Ellicott?
I think you said that the school construction meetings, only one of those had happened so far of the 3. How was attendance at that?
I will have to get that from Dr. Buddy. I was not able to be there, but I will get that for you from Dr. Buddy.
Okay, great. I have seen, at least in my ward, that the council members are also promoting those meetings, so I don't know if that's a coordinated effort or not, but that's good to see.
That is a coordinated effort, and they've been great partners.
Yes, Ms. Valdez.
Thank you for the report, Mr. Gordon. Can you talk a little bit more about the articles that were published through, I believe it was Cleveland.com, Cleveland Promise?
The Cleveland Promise, certainly. Thank you. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. So last year, at the very beginning of the year, the Cleveland.com editors, Chris Quinn and then Layla Atassi, approached me and asked if I would be willing to consider a embedded journalism project similar to one they had done in the larger Cleveland community. And we had some very candid discussions about the safeguards that would need to be in place in order to do that, but that frankly, our students and families and educators have an incredible story to tell that is never told. And so we came to some agreements. Those things include anonymity, so all of the names that you read are fictitious names, so that when our young people grow up, you'll never be able to Google and find that was that young person. That they wouldn't publish a single article in the first full year. That they would have parent permission for any article that they did publish. So all the stories you've seen are with the permission of parents, and a number of other things. So they actually embedded 2 reporters into a 4th grade classroom at Elmira, and now are starting to release. They have, as I understand it, almost 100 stories already teed up, and are doing initially, I think, 1 a day, and then it will move to 2 a week. And there's a dedicated website for these stories. And the reporters were so compelled, and the editors were so compelled that they've actually come back and are continuing to follow these kids into 5th grade. And so the stories range all the way from the challenges that our young people face to the dreams that they have, the dreams that their educators had that got them into the position they're in, the role of our Say Yes specialists, the role that the school team plays. And so they're really just, and I've only seen what's published. I haven't had any preview, but just really telling the story of our incredible young people and their educators in a way that most people never get to see, and hopefully piercing some of the mythology about urban students and urban educators, and you know, letting people know how hardworking our educators are, how dedicated they are, what it takes for our young people and their families to, you know, be able to access their education. And so I'm really excited by the project and the stories that have been released so far.
Thank you. I have been able to read some of the articles. Like you said, they've been really compelling stories. They're stories that, you know, many of our students across our entire district go through. And hopefully, if we haven't been able to do so already, we can make sure that we're thinking about these students as we're moving forward.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Gordon. We will now have our public participation period for a period of no longer than 40 minutes. During this segment of the business meeting, we will hear all public comment on either agenda or non-agenda items. This public participation period will be for persons to address the board for up to 3 minutes each. If you wish to address the board, you should have already filled out the request to speak form that was available on the table in the back of the room and submitted that form to Mr. Bertzlaff prior to the meeting. If anyone wishing to address the board has any written material that they would like to submit to the board, please give it to Mr. Bertzlaff and he will distribute the material to the board. While we welcome the opportunity to hear from members of our community at our meetings, there is, of course, an expectation that everyone addressing the board will show respect for our audience by conducting themselves in a courteous and professional manner as befits a public meeting. I also want to remind everybody that the answers to previous questions, previously posed questions, are now available on the meeting agenda, so you can review the answers to questions that have been posed previously. And I think this evening I don't know how many we have. Oh no, we're fine. Okay. So with that, our first speaker this evening, Mr. Tracy, followed by Marie Davis, and then Mrs. Colsher after that. So just the 3 speakers this evening.
You guys. Let me apologize to the women. You are not guys. You know, this happened, in about my 3rd year of teaching. I said, you guys. One timid little girl in the back raised up her hand. Mr. Tracy, I'm not a guy. It took me 3 months to eliminate that from my vocabulary. 3 months. The young ladies that presented the data analysis, what a powerful statement of the education of women to become powerful. And yet the coordinators started with, you guys. And the students followed with, you guys. And you heard it here tonight, talking to 3 young, impressionable-minded women. You guys. You gotta fix it. I mean, this is part of the problem, and we take it as granted. Enough of that. Let's get down to the heart of the matter, and that's Ordinance 1025-95-A, which would have never passed. The admission, the leasing, and one tax. It would have never passed. It was a scam to trick the voters, which you say voting is at the highest. Here we have a situation. They tried to trick the public after spending about $500 million for that stadium, which they want another one. Who can believe it? And they scammed the public because they didn't put in the maintenance money. So that's why that ordinance was passed. But it was passed only because they promised to hold the children harmless. They promised to hold the children harmless. And the amount was $2 million to hold the children harmless for a lifetime tax abatement. Well, precedent was set from '96 to 2009. And oh man, let me get it back. Precedent was set from 2000 to 2009 when the mayor stole $1 million from that promised money. And if you can tell me why that's not theft, I always said, I'll sit down. Mr. Farrow thinks her excuse from the new mayor is, well, you got $293 million in ARPA funds. So you don't need that $1 million. Apples and oranges. They're not the same. If you value voting, if you value holding children harmless, that $1 million would come right back. Now, Mr. Gordon, you have a student advisory committee, like 400 some students. Let's toss the question to them. Let's see what they think. Moreover, let's give them some power. Why don't we give them money and have them to help out with what the students would like to see and extracurriculars and after-school things? And where could they get that $1 million from? Since you don't need that money, because you got $293 million. Oh, by the way, you know what tears that argument apart? The city got $511 million. They can easily afford $1 million, especially for the children. You can't use them as a prop to get elected and then throw them to the curb. So, ladies and gentlemen of the board, and Mr. Gordon, I want to thank you. You've done a whole lot. You know, we've had our differences throughout the years, especially this $1 million. But don't you think your student advisory committee would really flourish if they were given a chance to spend $1 million? And more to the point, that data analysis group of women, wouldn't it be great if they could actually study if the students want a climate change school? Let them survey. Let them prove the point. And you could also include getting $1 million for them. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy. Mrs. Davis?
The last time I came here, I went over the 3 minutes, and I was not reprimanded, but was not welcomed. That's like permeating in the last 3 years of my life due to retaliation, which this board is very fully aware of. I have asked for a police investigation. No one intends to allow it. The truth has been buried, and I have been victimized, and it remains so, and I believe it will be remaining so in the future. To this day, since I asked for an investigation in May, No one has yet seen the evidence or let me explain it to them, the videos, the tampered evidence, all of that I've said before to you. Recently, this past week, I've been denied a special transfer. As you know, in January 20th, with the mask mandate, I reported that the TBT in this building was not complying. I got suspended for it, a retaliation, and reported incidents. When I reported those incidents, the network and administrators did not help me. They allowed people to retaliate 3 weeks so that I left, and I took 2 months, no pay. I am returned here. Last week, in this professional development, the teacher kicked me out of the room. This week, your OCI department denied my special transfer. I have gained an incredible amount of weight and now disabled. I can barely walk now. Yet I'm still here until I guess my body gives out because no one intends to help me. I have incurred more retaliation, and you fully know it, because I know that the departments know now the last 3 years, and everybody does. And I have not been welcomed. I have not been helped. And there is no such thing as a board policy whistleblower protection for the mask mandate or recently the fire code of microwaves in the room. So, talking about fairness, inclusiveness, it's good on paper, but it does not exist. I've had zero help. People have threatened me, and that evidence has been denied. And the connection to the administrators and teachers at that previous school, I can show you right now, and I can make my evidence known. No one will allow it. The child mandate call, the reasonable suspicion, it exists. No one will allow it. And I would like to add about the Garrett Morgan, the teens that were armed. Our leadership needs to keep our building safe, not protect the gunmen. I hope they will be held accountable, because accountability should be for everybody, not just whistleblowers or people who are worried about the virus or have anxiety, as I clearly do have anxiety, but I still get punished for, I had accomplished and skilled, and I always very strict, and everyone knows that I adhere to the protocols, and I get punished for it, and no one still, to this day, will help me.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Mrs. Coles?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just want to respond to the response, because I didn't get a letter. And if you will check the date at the top of this letter, you will find out why I didn't get a letter. Because it was mailed to me on the 24th. And I would have followed through on the letter had I gotten the letter, because there was a recommendation to me to talk to the support leader, Lorenzo Russell, and to the school, Lisa Farmer Cole. But I couldn't respond because the first time I saw the letter was when I opened the agenda today. So rather than anything else, I'd just like to respond to the letter to me. And I was not talking about Jasmine Fryer when I said a black woman was dismissed. I was talking about Walida Milam. And because she sought, I thought, to be reappointed and was not allowed. That's a whole difference than somebody moving someplace else. Okay, so that's the first clarity. The second clarity is that I attended, and board members know that I attended the tech fair. I waved at everybody, said hi, stayed all day. So I would not have said there was no training if I didn't know there was no training. I went to the Apple training, and you know what they taught me? How to take a picture of my hand. When I went to seek how to do Schoology, how to do the new power thing, because I'm not talking, the parents had a wonderful time. And I have to tell you, I had a wonderful time. I really enjoyed the day. But the point that I'm making is we cannot advance the district by just having wonderful times. We have to teach people what they need to know. This board would not function if you didn't have retreats and went to training. Why can't we go to training? I went to open house. I went to the meet and greet, because I go to everything. I went to the meet and greet. None of this was covered. Nothing was covered. And I did not blame those people, because that is not where you cover parent training. Open house is to meet your teacher and eat the cookies. That's what you go to open house for, to establish that relationship. You do not go for training. What's the third thing? Okay. The abbreviated classes, considering having abbreviated classes, I actually asked for the opposite. So the notes were probably not taken correctly. I said that we don't need abbreviated classes. We need in the regular schools. I understand why. The abbreviated classes means that you have fewer teachers, and we have a teacher shortage. But we're not here to have teachers worried completely about teacher shortages. We have to educate children. That's the primary function. If you come to high school with an NWEA that says you have a third grade reading level, how can you function on a college agenda? Because that's what those classes do. They take 30-some weeks and condense them into 16. And that means that the teacher can teach more classes. They can teach history in one before December, and then the child can then take government after December. And that's why I said 2 years, because they finished the curriculum in 2 years. Most of us took 4 years to graduate high school. We took 4, maybe 5 classes a whole year. And we had, in my day, 21 required credits. Well, guess what, guys? That's all that's required right now. So why have we taken it upon ourselves to take children who cannot read at a third grade level, offer them no remediation, and then put them on a college agenda? They can't do it. And so the thing that I am requesting today is I am requesting that we look at the CAP classes versus AP classes. How many kids pass the AP? We pay for that. How much money do we pay for no results? Because if we pay for AP classes and nobody passes the test, and we could have put the CAP class in so that if you get an A in a CAP class, you got an A in a college class. You don't have to take no other test. So that is a more cost-effective way to get the same or better results. The other thing is that the NWEA scores, I want to see them for the district. The state of Ohio can ask you for the world on a shoestring, and they can make it look like you're the greatest thing since buttered toast. But NWEA scores tell you what your children are capable of doing. They're testing this week right now. A child with a third grade reading level in the 11th grade cannot read the textbook. And you need to know that. I don't care if you have value added. I don't care if you're the most improved in the whole wide world. And then the other thing is, I want to know how many children are taking credit recovery. And in that group of children, I want to know how many of them are slated special needs. Because if you're in a special ed class with an IEP, how did you fail in order to have credit recovery? And then if you cannot learn with your differentiated curriculum in a regular class, how are you going to learn in a credit recovery that's at the highest level? You can't pass the regular class with the teacher sitting there because, last point, right now, with the shortage of teachers, we have classes that have as many special needs children in it as regular. And the class sizes are up to 32 in number. So can you imagine 15 special needs kids cross-categorically? That means that the kid that has a severe behavior handicap is sitting next to the kid who has the multiple handicap, who's sitting next to the kid who has the psychosis, who's sitting next to the kid who is dyslexic, who's sitting next to the kid who has what they consider a non-teachable IQ. And then guess who's sitting next to them? My kid. The kid with the genius IQ and the kid that's just average that cannot tolerate that many people. So now it's time to just take a look at the class makeup of most of these classes. And so I would suggest that in also asking for the NWEA, asking for the passage rate of the AP classes, and asking for the composition of the high school classes. Because we used to get that. When we did the looking in on your schools and PTA, we would walk into that thing and get all those figures. I don't know if you get them already, but.
Thank you, Mrs. Coles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to now move into our resolutions for consideration this evening. We will consider the adoption of 10 resolutions in the areas of finance, engagement, operations, academics, and talent, all of which were discussed at our September 13th board work session. 701 and 702, the chair will now entertain a motion to adopt the following two resolutions. 7.01, authorizing the acceptance of a grant from the Department of Health and Human Services and authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to spend the funds in accordance with the terms and conditions of the grant. And 7.02, authorizing the acceptance of gifts and grants from Logicalis, Inc., MCPC, the Martha Holden Jennings Foundation, and the Ohio Arts Council, and authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to spend the funds in accordance with the terms and conditions of the gifts and grants. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Mr. Gordon?
Thank you. These are our finance resolutions. Both of them are accepting gifts and grants. They are presented unchanged from the board work session.
Any questions or discussions from board members? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Mortimer, can you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Bingham.
Yes.
Mr. Hurd.
Yes.
Ms. Dempsey.
Yes.
Ms. Ellicott.
Yes.
Ms. Hudnall.
Yes.
Mrs. Link.
Yes.
Dr. Sridhar. Yes. Ms. Valdez.
Yes.
Ms. Bingham, the motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Mr. Mortimer. The chair will now entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 8.01, authorizing the issuance of a purchase order to Blackboard, Inc. for the annual web hosting subscription for district and school-based website content management system, template, mobile app, and mass notification system from September 1, 2022 through August 31st, 2023 in an amount not to exceed $167,024.97. Thank you, Louise. Do I have a second? Thank you. Dr. Schroeder. Mr. Gordon. It could be Dr. Gordon.
Thank you. This is our resolution to renew our subscription with Blackboard, which is our website, mobile app, and our IVR system. It is presented unchanged from the board work session.
Is there any question or discussion from board members? Seeing none, Mr. Mortimer, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Bingham?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Ms. Dempsey? Ms. Ellicott?
Yes.
Ms. Hudnall?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Dr. Sridhar?
Yes.
Ms. Valdez?
Yes.
Ms. Bingham, the resolution, passes 8-0.
Thank you, Mr. Mortimer. The chair will now entertain a motion to adopt the following two resolutions. 9.01, authorizing an adjustment of budgets for the board-approved ESSER facility spending as described in the attached Exhibit A, and 9.02, authorizing term agreements with various contractors and suppliers to provide commercial, industrial repair services and supplies for the daily operation and maintenance of district facilities on an as-needed basis for the period July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, with 2 one-year renewal options for the Cleveland Municipal School District. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Gordon.
Thank you. These are our operations resolutions. 9.01 is an adjustment of the budget without an increase and is presented unchanged from the board work session. Resolution 9.02 is the addition of additional vendors, contractors, and suppliers for district maintenance so that we have more choices to select from. Again, presented unchanged from the board work session.
Any question or discussion from board members? Seeing none, Mr. Mortimer, can you please
Yes,
call the
ma'am.
roll?
Ms. Bingham?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Ms. Dempsey?
Yes.
Ms. Ellicott?
Yes.
Ms. Hudnall?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Dr. Sridhar? Yes. Ms. Valdez?
Yes.
Ms. Bingham, the motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Mr. Mortimer. The chair will now entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 10.01, exercising elections to have community school data noted on the Cleveland Municipal School District's 2022-2023 state report card. Thank you, Louise. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is that you, Mr. Hurd?
Yep.
Mr. Hurd. Mr. Gordon?
Thank you. This is our resolution to elect our community school data to be included in our district report card. There was a question at the board work session about the discipline data for these schools. We were able to provide the board the discipline data for the sponsored schools because we put that into the contract last school year. We will be putting the same requirement in the partnering schools when their contracts are due this school year, and then I'll be able to provide all of that data for the board. The resolution is presented unchanged from the board work session.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Is there any further? Yes, Ms. Valdez.
Just, I guess to clarify, then the partnering schools then don't have to present their discipline data to the state in the report card?
I don't know what they have or have not presented to the state, and I will go back and look at that for you. We specifically put into the sponsor contracts after the board requested this information. The sponsor contracts have already been through the board, and the partners are coming next, and so we actually put it into the contract that they are required to provide it directly to us so that we can disaggregate it. But I'll check what's available at the state for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Mortimer, could you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Bingham?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Ms. Dempsey?
Yes.
Ms. Ellicott?
Yes.
Ms. Hudnall?
Yes.
Mrs. Link? Dr. Sridhar? Ms. Valdez?
Yes.
Ms. Bingham, the motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Mr. Mortimer. The chair will now entertain a motion to adopt the following 4 resolutions. 11.01, authorizing the employment of teaching, non-teaching, and school-based administrative staff. 11.02, authorizing the reclassification of employees. 11.03, accepting the retirements, resignations, and other separations of employees. And 11.04, authorizing the issuance of limited contracts for differential positions and the payment of additional earned compensation to employees. Thank you, Louise. Do I have a second? Dr. Schroeder? Thank you. Mr. Gordon?
Thank you. These are our monthly talent resolutions. The resolutions are presented unchanged, and I will remind the board we do update the the names on the list to be the most accurate so that we are processing our employees as quickly and promptly as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Any questions or further discussion? Okay, Mr. Mortimer, can you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Bingham.
Yes.
Mr. Hurd.
Yes.
Ms. Dempsey.
Yes.
Ms. Ellicott.
Yes.
Ms. Hudnall.
Yes.
Mrs. Link. Dr. Sridhar. Ms. Valdez.
Yes.
Ms. Bingham, the motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Mr. Mortimer. Is there any old or new business to come before the board this evening? No? Okay. The next Board of Education, oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, I raised my hand late. Thank you, Chair. This is just something that I read this week and had me concerned. It was a national report on commercial real estate saying that in general, they think it's dropping like 30%. So it just makes me, the value of commercial real estate, I mean, again, this is just a general statement right now, but I just worry for Cleveland because a lot of our tax dollars are based on commercial real estate, and I also am concerned that maybe ours could be greater than the average for the nation just due to our general poverty. So if we could just keep a watch on that for our financials. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Any other new or old business? The next Board of Education meeting will be a board work session on Tuesday, October 11th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. at Hannah Gibbons Nottingham School, 1401 Larchmont Road. The chair will now entertain a motion that the board enter into executive session for the purpose of considering the employment of public employees. Thank you. Do we have a second? Dr. Schroeder, thank you. Mr. Mortimer, can you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Bingham.
Yes.
Mr. Hurd.
Yes.
Ms. Dempsey. Ms. Ellicott.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudnall.
Yes.
Mrs. Link. Dr. Sridhar. Ms. Valdez. Ms. Bingham, the motion passes 8-0.
Thank you very much. With that, the board will move into executive session. Following executive session, we will return to this room to briefly conduct further business.
CMSD CEO Eric Gordon received a standing ovation as he took to the stage at the Cleveland Renaissance Hotel to deliver his 12th and final State of the Schools address.
I know it was a surprise to many of you when I announced last week that this school year would be my final year as CEO. And that decision was not an easy one for me, but it's an important decision made at the right time and for the right reasons.
I'm sad that it's his last State of the Schools.
Having been in the district for 40 years, and I've really grown pretty close to Eric, I'm heartbroken because I think that he has been one of the best things that has happened to the Cleveland School District.
During his speech, Gordon laid out why this is the right time for him to step aside, with the theme of passing the baton.
He is a leader, and no other leader I've ever experienced in any part of my career is a leader like Eric Gordon.
CMSD is in a strong financial, operational, and personnel health. And that vital health ensures the district's continued progress through periods of transition as we enter into the exchange zone this school year.
Gordon talked about community partnerships formed with many organizations, including Pre-for-Cle, that introduces 3- and 4-year-olds to preschool, all the way to Say Yes to Education, that helps graduating seniors with scholarships.
As graduation rates increased, but that our students were not going on to post-secondary opportunities, he knew about this program. He worked so hard to bring the community together, to bring it to Cleveland, and it will have a 25-year effect on our students.
While students did struggle during the pandemic, the recent report card shows scores are improving.
In fact, in a number of areas on this year's report card, CMSD has already returned to pre-pandemic levels. Among the most encouraging news is that for the first time, CMSD is the highest rated urban school district in the state of Ohio.
And as Gordon gets ready to pass the baton to the next CEO, many reflect on his legacy.
He's going to have some huge shoes to fill.
He's put together so many people that weren't talking before, that weren't working together before. And now we've formed these very strong ties, which I think will help us bridge that gap to the next CEO. But for him to build that foundation was something no CEO had done before.
He worked tirelessly to make sure that the public, when he said out loud, I'm going to do this, that he did it. That's what creates trust. And the trust may be actually his biggest legacy.
Regardless of what you do or where you sit in this room, the work we have done together is legacy work, particularly as it sets up the district for future progress and supports the ability to impact future generations of Cleveland's children. Thank you for joining me this afternoon for my 12th and final State of the Schools address. Thank you for your faith. Thank you.
At Wade Park Pre-K through 8 school, fathers walking their children to school Thursday morning were greeted with a round of applause. Law enforcement officials from 6 different agencies and mentors from 100 black men were on hand to give these dads a warm welcome, and they appreciate it.
I like it. Give the fathers a chance to participate. Show support. I show a lot of support in the neighborhood, in the community. I like it.
Well, I'm sure they're going to be surprised by seeing all the police cars out front, and I think they're going to really feel that support that we can give them by the clap in.
On this day, fathers, grandfathers, and father figures are encouraged to walk their children to school. Across the district, 60 schools participated in the Father's Walk, a nationwide initiative designed to show how important it is for fathers to be involved in the lives of their children.
Because fathers matter. We are seeking to engage our families and create these family school partnerships. And it's not just the moms, it's the dads, it's the uncles, it's the grandfathers, it's the aunties, it's everybody in that family that we want to create these partnerships with, because we know that when families are engaged, students do better.
Keep looking. Keep looking. Big smile right here. At Hannah Gibbons STEM School, fathers and their children took pictures. Dads got a special treat. They received a copy of the book, The Father's Walk, written by Margaret Bernstein. She says she wanted fathers, especially black fathers, to have representation in children's books.
And my latest one really is about the Father's Walk. I think it's an incredible event. I love to see them walking hand in hand with their kids. When I write that the line of dads wraps around the block, that was an incredible, enduring image to me, and I just wanted to pay homage to this event.
You know what day is really cool? That day that fathers go to school.
Bernstein and Daryl Judge Sr. read the book to the dads. But at times, this father of 5 was overcome with emotion.
I was so overwhelmed myself to see a father react to my book in that way. I mean, it showed me that I hit the target in a way I never anticipated. He was so deeply touched to see just those sweet moments that I depicted of a father loving on his child.
I mean, she really emphasized the need, for fathers to engage.
Family and Community Engagement Executive Director Tracy Hill says students in 30 schools received the book to take home.
We felt were very important to share with our fathers during our annual Father's Walk, to promote reading at home and reading with children, because we know that when dads and moms and other parents and caregivers support reading, that literacy development occurs at a much faster rate.
Dads are grateful for this day and every day they are active in their children's lives.
I think we should have this walk every day.
Is it hot outside or cold outside?
Hot.
It's hot outside. Which one?
Deeper hot.
You want?
This is my classroom. Yes. So.
Starting a new teaching position at CMSD for these two educators is nothing short of fate.
So it's kind of crazy that my first job I got here, it was like crazy the way it happened, honestly. It was like it was meant to be. It was weird.
It's been my calling.
What letter, Ava?
You see, for Paige Novell and Perez Bryant,
So how does this look?
they were both students at CMSD and are both now teaching at the same schools they were students. Miss Novell attended Newton D. Baker's School of the Arts up until the 7th grade.
Surreal. It's like so weird. Like when I came back from my interview, it was like stepping into a time capsule. I felt like nothing changed. My art is still upstairs hanging on the walls. Like it's just crazy. It's crazy.
And Mr. Bryant graduated from Ginn Academy in 2011.
I am returning to my alma mater as the science teacher. And, again, I am in a position where I feel that this has been my mission. This is what I've been working for. This is a big moment for me.
This homecoming has both feeling a little nostalgic.
Good job! I grew up like right down the street from here, so I just always saw myself working in CMSD, and especially Baker. I don't know. Whenever I pictured myself teaching, it was here.
And then, so give an example of how, as a student here, like you could wait for opportunity. I feel chosen. I think this was destined, and for me to be able to, for those same opportunities that were given to me is an amazing feeling.
Mr. Bryant is teaching science to 9th and 11th graders, but he also plans to instill some life skills.
I was a class clown. I joked a lot, but you have to know when to turn it on and turn it off and be serious. I want to help these guys reach their full potential and beyond. I want to be one of those teachers that I had who I just cannot thank them enough for the extra things, the human side of education that they poured into me, that stuck into me now, and it led me here.
And Miss Novell is teaching students in a low-incident classroom.
I like the life skills and seeing the progress that these kids make, and just working with them every day and being able to see them progress and learn. They just I don't know, it's just more rewarding, I guess.
This new chapter brings their academic history full circle, as they are now making a difference in their students' lives, just like their teachers did when they were young.
Have the opportunity to do what I'm doing now, and then to be an example for those guys in the classroom. It's an amazing experience.
Who's leading today?
Me!
I feel like that's what I was meant to do. They have so much patience. I mean, I just love them. I just love it.
All right, are we ready? Can we stop at the top of the stairs and don't go down?
So the board is now back in public session. The chair will now entertain a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the suspension of a non-teaching employee, Ernest Priester.
So moved.
Thank you. Mr. Gordon?
Thank you. This is a recommendation for a one-day suspension for violation of district policies, procedures, and rules.
Mr. Mortimer?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Bingham.
Yes.
Mr. Hurd.
Yes.
Ms. Dempsey. Ms. Ellicott.
Yes.
Mrs. Hudnall.
Yes.
Mrs. Link.
Yes.
Dr. Streethar.
Yes.
Ms. Valdez.
Yes.
Ms. Hudnall, the motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much. The chair will now entertain a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the suspension of a non-teaching employee, Charlene Hubbard.
So moved.
Thank you. Mr. Gordon?
Thank you. This is a recommendation for a 5-day suspension for violation of district policies, procedures, and rules.
Mr. Mortimer?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Bingham.
Yes.
Mr. Hurd.
Yes.
Ms. Ellicott?
Yes.
Mrs. Hudnall?
Yes.
Mrs. Link? Dr. Sridhar? Ms. Valdez?
Yes.
Ms. Bingham, the motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Mortimer. As I mentioned earlier, the next regular board meeting will be a board work session on Tuesday, October 11th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. at Hannah Gibbons Nottingham School. The chair will now entertain a motion to adjourn this board business meeting.
No.
Oh, wait.
You'll go back into executive session.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Sorry. So the chair will now entertain a motion that the board enter into executive session for the purpose of considering the employment of public employees.
So move.
Mr. Mortimer, can you please call
Yes,
the roll?
ma'am. Ms. Bingham?
Yes.
Mr. Hurd?
Yes.
Ms. Ellicott?
Yes.
Mrs. Hudnall?
Yes.
Mrs. Link? Dr. Sridhar? Ms. Valdez?
Yes.
Ms. Bingham, the motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. The board will now move into executive session. We will not be returning to this room to conduct further business. Thank you.